Hi Post-16, welcome back to Module 6. I hope you had a great week off last week. I'm coming to you from my house. I hope you're still safe indoors in your house and that everything is going well for you and your loved ones. We are still posting regularly on the Google Classroom. Please don't get annoyed at the number of times a day I post things on there. I'm doing it just to make sure that you still feel part of our community and that we've got an efficient way to get information to you. And hopefully the things that we're posting on there are proving to be of use to at least some of you. Our focus in our briefing this week is to do with attitude to learning, and in particular it's to do with learning itself, because this week's briefing is all about the extended project qualification. And the purpose of this briefing is to talk you through exactly what the extended project qualification is, why you might want to consider adding it to your timetable for year 13, and what the benefits are. So stay tuned if you're interested in hearing about the EPQ. So what is the EPQ? The EPQ is a qualification that universities asked exam boards to develop to give students in year 13 the opportunity to show that they had the skills that are required to succeed on a university degree course. So it is very much something that universities value. It is something that they see a benefit to students studying. We are fortunate that we have two very experienced teachers in school who've been delivering EPQ very successfully for a number of years now. And so it is something that we are delighted to be able to offer students in year 12 the chance to add to their timetable before they go into year 13. It's a qualification that is worth the equivalent to half an A-level, so it's up to a maximum of 28 UCAS points when you come to apply for university. You choose the focus for your EPQ. You're allowed to choose something that has come out of your study of one of the subjects that you are taking this year, but you are not allowed to choose an actual topic, a unit that you are studying for one of your qualifications. There's not allowed to be an overlap. So there might be something that you've read about or touched on during the course of one of your studies this year that you thought, oh, that would be interesting to find out more about. You could choose something like that as the focus for your EPQ. But equally, it could be something that's not connected to any of your subjects that you are just really interested in and want to find out more about. What will you need to submit if you do the EPQ? So this is worth half an A-level, so there is half an A-level's worth of work that you have to get done. You would have to, first of all, submit a production log. In other words, at each stage of your research and production of your EPQ, you would need to keep a track of all of the research you're doing, because you have to hand that production log in at the end. You also have to hand in a finished research product. Now, for most people, that's an extended essay. That written report is usually 5,000 words long. But it could be an artefact. So if you were particularly good at art, you could paint a picture or you could make a sculpture. If you were good at drama, for example, you could do a performance piece. So it could be a recording of a performance as well. If you do either of those two options, you have to do a written write-up of the process you've been through to create that artefact, but it is much shorter than if you just write an extended essay. You also have to hand in documents that show how you've spent your time, because the EPQ is designed to be a 30-week course, and you have to give an account of how you've spent your 30 weeks worth of timetable allocation in producing your EPQ. And then at the very end, when you've completed everything else, you have to give a 10-minute presentation to your EPQ teacher all about the process you've been through in completing your EPQ. In your production log, you have to keep track of all kinds of information that I've listed for you there on the slide. It's a very comprehensive document, and it's not one to be taken lightly, because if you haven't produced a good production log, it is almost impossible to get a high mark for the actual piece that you've created for your EPQ. The actual project itself, the majority of students choose to do the extended essay, which is 5,000 words long. A smaller number choose to do an artefact or a performance, and with that you then have to do the 1,000 word write-up of the process that you've been through. And part of the write-up, whether it's 1,000 or 5,000 words, is you have to do an evaluation of your finished EPQ product that you've made, whether it's the essay or something else. There are 4 assessment objectives that you are marked against. You can see that they are more or less equally weighted. The one that gets slightly more weighting is AO3, Develop and Realise, because that's the one that takes into account the finished product that you've made. But the others, how you've managed your time and your research, how well you've used your research in your creation, and how well you've been able to review and evaluate the finished product, they then get equal weighting spread across. So what are the steps towards actually completing an EPQ? So at this time of the year in Module 6, we ask you to say that you would like to do it so that we can add it to your timetable, and we get you to start thinking before you come back to school in September about the topic that you would like to focus your EPQ on, so that you're ready for your first meeting with your EPQ teacher to talk through your idea. You then have to plan and research your project, and you then have to create your finished artefact, whether it's an essay or a performance or an artwork or a piece of engineering or a product that you've made in product design. You then have to make sure that you're keeping up with your production log through the whole 30 weeks of the process. You will have a meeting with your EPQ teacher once a week where you will be able to touch base, report on what you've done during the week. Your EPQ teacher will then give you feedback, set you targets for the coming week that you are then expected to be able to report back on in the following week, because part of that log that goes into the exam board shows the teacher's feedback to you, the interaction that you've had, and it's expected that that will happen regularly during the 30 weeks. And then at the end you have to prepare and give your presentation, and in that presentation you're not talking through what your finished article is, either the essay or the artefact that you've produced. You're talking through the process, and it's a reflection on what you've learned and an evaluation of what went well and what could have gone better through that 30-week process. There are particular skills that the exam board expects you to be able to demonstrate in your EPQ, and those are the skills that then get marked under the 4 assessment criteria. And if any of these skills that are on the slide at the moment are skills that you don't feel entirely confident with at the moment, then that's part of what your EPQ teacher will do with you, is teach you how to develop those skills so that you can then employ them as part of your EPQ and be successful. Now, it was universities that went to exam boards and asked them to create a qualification like the EPQ. And so universities really value the qualification, because it's a really good way for them to look at a UCAS application and think, actually this student is already proving that they have a lot of the skills and aptitudes that they need to succeed working independently at university. You've got a quote here from the University of Newcastle, but there isn't a single UK university that doesn't recognise and value the EPQ as a qualification. So who can, and crucially who cannot take EPQ? So this is for students in Year 12. You can take the EPQ if you've had 3 subjects on your timetable in Year 12 and you would like to drop one of those subjects because you've decided it just isn't working out for you, and you'd then like to replace that subject with EPQ. For students in the situation where they have decided they don't want to continue with one of their 3 subjects, there is no other qualification that we can add onto your timetable in Year 13, and it is a funding requirement that you are enrolled to take 3 courses. So if there is a course that you want to drop at the end of Year 12, you need to communicate that to me, but the only qualification we can replace it with is the EPQ. Other students who can take EPQ are students who've taken 3 subjects in year 12 and who would just like to add EPQ as a 4th subject. Because we offer EPQ lessons in each of the 4 blocks on the timetable, we can only add it to people's timetable if they have an empty block. So therefore, if you've got 3 subjects on your timetable this year, there needs to be the 4th empty block for us to add EPQ to your timetable. Students who cannot take EPQ in year 13, therefore, are students who in year 12 have got 4 subjects on their timetable and who don't want to drop one of those subjects at the end of year 12, because you haven't got an empty block on your timetable for us to then timetable meetings with your EPQ teacher. Other people that cannot take EPQ are students who are on the IBCP pathway. That's partly because you've already got 4 subjects on your timetable, but mainly because the reflective project that you do as part of the IBCP is pretty much exactly the same as the EPQ qualification. There'd be no value in doing an EPQ and a reflective project because they are one and the same thing. The final group of students who cannot take EPQ in year 13 are students who are enrolled to take GCSE, English language or maths as a retake, because there won't be space on your timetable to also fit EPQ in as well. And actually, particularly if you're thinking about going to university, you need to throw everything you've got at getting your GCSE English or maths sorted out rather than worrying about EPQ, because you cannot go to university if you haven't got a GCSE at grade 4 or above in English language and maths. Now, if you decide that you want to add EPQ to your timetable next year, but then find it really difficult when you start, some people can drop it, other people can't drop it. If you are adding EPQ as a 4th subject to your timetable, and you get partway through year 13 and you decide, actually, this is too much, I need to focus on the 3 subjects I was doing in year 12, then we can just take EPQ off your timetable, no problem. However, if you are one of the students that wants to drop a subject at the end of year 12 and add EPQ on to be your 3rd subject, then you have no choice. You have to carry on with EPQ because you have to be continuing with 3 subjects throughout year 13. That's a funding rule from the government. And we are expecting a 30-week commitment from people. So we launch when we first get back in September, and 30 weeks later, that takes you up until about the May half term, which is when year 13, the funding year finishes for you anyway. So we are expecting a complete commitment all the way through if you decide you want to keep EPQ on your timetable. You'll do your final presentations for EPQ in all likelihood either just before or just after the Easter holiday. So EPQ will be finished a little bit earlier than the other qualifications that you're taking. So how do you sign up to take EPQ, having seen this information and weighing up whether or not you'd like to do it? If you decide you would like to add EPQ to your timetable, you need to email me. And you need to do that by the 1st of July, because we will create the class lists for EPQ on the 6th of July. And that will then give us a couple of weeks before the end of the summer holiday for the EPQ teachers, that's Mr. Leadbeater and Miss Shepley, to reach out to students and begin the process of negotiating topics for you to study for your EPQ. If you are a student who wants to drop their 3rd subject and replace it with EPQ, then in that email you send me to say, yes, I'd like to do EPQ, you also need to tell me which subject it is that you would like to drop off your timetable. We will then get underway with updating your timetable so that when you get back in September, that 3rd subject that you want to drop is gone and EPQ has taken its place. So, to repeat, if you want to add EPQ to your timetable, you need to email me by the 1st of July. I look forward to hearing from you. See you next week in briefing.